to in any case start, तो we'll start. ठीक है. तो ऐसा है कि we are supposed to continue with the bill because मुझे तो कोई notice नहीं आया to introduce any kind of another discussion which may take any other agenda into consideration of utmost public importance. तो ठीक है, we can start. And chat box में ही with the same practice you can type in your names. मतलब वही डॉट मार लो, कुछ भी कर लो, तो so that everyone can know who is willing to speak. और 1 घंटा बचा है तो let's utilize it. तो ठीक है, सबसे पहले गुलाम नबी आजाद, उसके बाद मिस्टर गहलोत, उसके बाद प्लीज कीप एडिंग योर नेम्स. दैट्स द ओनली एक्सपेक्टेशन. थैंक यू. यू कैन स्टार्ट.
Honorable Chair, may I?
हाँ, गुलाम नबी आजाद, राइट?
Okay, yeah.
हाँ सर, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. A critical reading of Section 7, Subsection 1 of the Code tells us an application for initiation of corporate insolvency resolution process by a financial creditor against the corporate debtor shall be filed jointly by not less than 100 of such creditors in the same class, or not less than 10% of the total number of such creditors in the same class, whichever is less. As far as rationale goes, I do realize that the purpose of this section is to prevent any one single financial creditor from dragging a corporate debtor into the corporate insolvency resolution process and sabotaging the routine business, as well as exploiting the other financial creditors, whether in default or not. But a better fact of such relief provided to the corporate debtor also has to do with certain rights which are stripped off from the hands of the financial creditors, having more weightage in terms of claims due. There proves an unequitable and erroneous application of law where a financial creditor with dues of assumingly 80% of the total dues of the corporate debtor has to bring at least 1/10 of the financial creditors, or 100 as the case may be, under Section 21 of the Code, that is Committee of Creditors, which deprives the very right given to such majority financial creditor. Through your means, the Honorable Chair of the House, I beg for a full-fledged discussion on the applicability of this section. Thank you.
Where is the scribe actually? She was initially sharing the timer right on the screen. So can she do that?
Sorry, I wasn't sharing the screen. It's going on in the background. I'll just share it for the next one.
हाँ. चलो, thank you. ठीक है. The next speaker.
I'll speak once the timer is up.
Okay. Perfect. चलो ठीक है, start.
Thank you, sir. Addressing Mr. Azad's concern that financial creditors ought to be stripped of certain rights so as to, in the longer run, bring the operational creditors and the financial creditors at an equal standing is patently legally incorrect, as the Supreme Court has already decided on this matter, and hence the matter is laid to rest. Our hands are tied, not that we would have done it either ways, because as I did already exemplify in my previous speeches, financial creditors have a larger bargain when it comes to the allocation of debts. With this, I'm going to go back to my initial discussion of the wires of Section 29A. I have already spoken of 3 issues. The 4th issue that has been raised in the past is, should relatives of persons disqualified as a resolution applicant be disqualified even if they do not share a business relationship with such disqualified persons, initial disqualified persons? The primary notion of exempting, my apologies, all the categories of persons who are mentioned in Section 5, subsection 24A of the IBC clarified that such persons must be connected with the resolution applicant within the meaning of Section 29A clause J. Considering that Section 29A clause J deals with persons, natural as well as artificial, who are connected with the business activity of the resolution applicant, the Supreme Court had held, again in the Swiss Ribbons case, that the definition of the related party contained in Section 5, subsection 24A must be read in nocitus a socis with categories of persons mentioned in explanation 1 of Section 29A clause J, and shall include only persons who are associated with the business activity of the resolution applicant. For the benefit of the committee, nocitus a socis basically is a rule of interpretation where you read a certain law with regards to the aids of interpretation which are already given in the certain clause or the certain section of law. The last and the final issue that I'm going to address right now, which has been there happening in the committee for a very, very long time. Why should MSMEs be exempted from the purview of Section 29A Clause C and Section 29A Clause H? The primary notion of exempting MSMEs from the purview of Section 29A of the IBC was to ensure that there would be ample opportunities to revive the companies, as was noted also by the Injeti Srinivas Insolvency Law Committee. The premise that the Injeti Srinivas Insolvency Law Committee concluded for its findings was that the business of MSMEs normally attract interest primarily from promoters from other MSMEs and does not attract promoters of other industries. Hence, it would be patently unnecessary and unconstitutional to equate MSMEs with other corporate debtors, and hence MSMEs cannot be brought under the layer of Section 29AC and Section 29AH. Thank you.
Rishikesh is unavailable? अच्छा है तो ठीक है. Okay, fine. So the next speaker can take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Chairman. Today, once we've reconvened, I would like to bring up a new topic for discussion, which is related to the pre-packed IBC scheme which the government plans. Now, for the benefit of the committee, what is a pre-packed IBC scheme? A pre-packed scheme is an arrangement under which the stressed companies and the purchaser negotiate the sale of all the part of a company's business or assets prior to the appointment of an insolvency professional as administrator. Now, this topic had brought in in very earlier stages of the discussion, but now I think it's important because it's entirely a new concept coming up in the committee. Now, like every other topic, this topic also has its challenges and drawbacks. The biggest issue that the pre-packed scheme will face initially is that while options are being evaluated by the company, they would have no capital lenders lending money to them. Now, this may happen because there is obviously a risk involved in the recovery of the money, and while lenders already know that the company is stressed, they would not want to take a financial risk. Now then, how is the government planning to basically make sure that this flaw is basically covered up and things go on smoothly? Now, second major concern that may arise during this scheme's implementation is that it would not be held, it would not have the shield of moratorium like that there is in case and admitted under Section 7 and Section 9 of the IBC. Therefore, creditors may enforce their rights and remedies while the company is negotiating for a pre-packed scheme. Now, here again, we have to keep in mind that the bill is somewhere and the scheme is somewhere favoring the creditors. Now, one major criticism of the pre-packed scheme is that it is more favored to the secured creditors, as I've already told. Neither do the operational creditors have much say in the negotiation, or they're given a fair share in this. Now, this challenge has to overcome if pre-packed scheme has to be implemented in India, because again, as I told, that agreed that Article 14 says about equals to be treated equally and unequals to be treated unequally, but there have been judgments which have said that there has to be no discrimination on this basis. Now, transparency would also be a big hurdle since the existing management transparency would also be a big hurdle because since the existing management would be in charge of alienating the assets to the company afloat, and therefore and then it would be of apprehensions regarding the correctness of the entire process and how the entire process is going to be fair and transparent in its very nature. With this, I would like to state the other flaws in the later speeches. Thank you, Sir Chairman.
S. Jaishankar.
धन्यवाद सर.
अभी इस समय जो हमने नई चर्चा प्रारंभ की है, उससे पहले मैं दो छोटे छोटे टर्म्स को क्लैरिफाई करना चाहूँगा, क्योंकि उसकी पहले हमने काफ़ी उस पर चर्चा की है, लेकिन कहीं पर भी उसकी मीनिंग जो है वो हम सबके सामने स्पष्ट नहीं है। एक जो बैंक्रप्सी, इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी के बारे में हमने जितनी बात की, उसमें किसी ने भी इंसॉल्वेंसी के, बिकॉज देयर आर दो तरह की इंसॉल्वेंसीज हो सकती है। एक किसी भी कंपनी जो होती है उसमें या तो कैश फ्लो इंसॉल्वेंसी होती है और या बैलेंस शीट इंसॉल्वेंसी होती है। कैश फ्लो इंसॉल्वेंसी मीन्स कि there are enough assets but not enough liquid assets. So because there is kind of liquid asset जिसके अंदर कैश और बैंक अकाउंट काउंट होता है, और दूसरा होता है कि आपका मशीनरी, आपका प्लांट एंड ऑल दीज थिंग्स उसमें काउंट होती है। तो देर आर इनफ एसेट्स बट नॉट इनफ लिक्विड एसेट्स और प्रॉपर मोड ऑफ पेमेंट to cover the debt due. So for that cash flow insolvency comes. और जहाँ कहीं भी देर आर नॉट इनफ एसेट्स टू पे द लाइबिलिटीज, एंड जहाँ पे एसेट्स आपकी कम होती है, लाइबिलिटीज जहाँ ज्यादा होती है, वहाँ शोज करती है कि आपकी जो बैलेंस शीट है वहाँ शो करता है कि आपकी इंसॉल्वेंसी होती है। दूसरी बात, इस आईबीसी का जो ऑब्जेक्टिव, हमने काफी बार ऐसा चर्चा की है कि जो कॉर्पोरेट डेटर्स है उसका ध्यान किस तरह से रखा जा रहा है। तो ये पूरा जो कोड है, क्योंकि अगर हम इसके टाइटल पर भी अगर हम इसको देखें तो ये इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी कोड है, इट इज नॉट अ बिल और इट इज नॉट एन एक्ट। सो इसका एक छोटा सा डिफरेंस कि कोड समराइजेस एवरीथिंग अबाउट अ स्पेसिफिक टॉपिक एंड इट कंसोलिडेट्स ऑल द लॉज इन इंडिया और इन विच व्हाटएवर इट प्रिवेल्स। सो इसका मेन जो ऑब्जेक्टिव है कि किसी भी कॉर्पोरेट डेटर को या किसी भी कंपनी को परमानेंटली बिजनेस करने के लिए हम उसको रोक नहीं रहे हैं। अगर कोई भी कंपनी का सपोज अगर 10,000 करोड़ का ड्यू है, एंड इफ ही पेज द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ दैट ड्यू अराउंड 2,000 करोड़ अमाउंट, सो ही कैन बिड फॉर इट्स ओन कंपनी। सो इट इज लाइक कि हम किसी भी इसको एक पीनलाइज नहीं करने की वजह, इसको इस तरीके से हम प्रेजेंट करना चाहिए कि इसका ये तरीका है कि हम लोगों ने कंपनी को परमानेंटली बंद करने की बजाय, आप या तो हो सकता है तो आप या तो परमानेंटली बंद कर दो, इफ यू हैव आपके पास में है चांसेस कि आप उसको वापस थोड़ा सा रिवाइव कर सको, तो इंटरेस्ट पे करने के बाद में किया जा सकता है। एंड द थर्ड टॉपिक इज कॉर्पोरेट डेटर को जो 14 डेज का नोटिस दिया जाता है बिफोर द कमेंसमेंट ऑफ द रिजोल्यूशन प्रोसेस, अगर वो उस 14 डेज के पीरियड में जो भी प्रॉब्लम है उसको डिस्प्यूटेड टैग कर दे, उसको डिस्प्यूट टैग कर दे कि आई हैव नॉट पेड दैट स्पेसिफिक अमाउंट बिकॉज ऑफ बैड क्वालिटी ऑफ प्रोडक्ट और बिकॉज ऑफ हाई इंटरेस्ट रेट, बिकॉज ऑफ एनी डिसएग्रीमेंट ऑन एनी टॉपिक। सो उस वजह से अगर वो डिस्प्यूट उस पर रेज कर ले तो रिजोल्यूशन प्रोसेस कमेंस नहीं होगा। इसलिए कॉर्पोरेट डेटर के पास में भी चांस रहता है कि वो अपनी बात को रख सकता है। That's it.
Thank you, sir. We'll take Sibbal, sir.
Sir,
Hmm.
I believe TC Gehlot is there before Mr. Sibbal.
Sir, pehle ho gaya. Okay, I'm just revising the list which I have.
Yes, sir.
Please
Some of the
check. Okay, so we'll take it TC Gehlot now. Uske baad we will be having Kapil Sibal then Mir Fayaz, right?
Ji, sir.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, TC Gehlot.
Thank you, sir. We do not intend to engage on the topic of prepacks for now because as also with relation to the notice that was sent by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, statements are open and we have only thought of incorporating it in the IBC regime, but we haven't made a conclusive decision on it yet. And hence the Rajya Sabha should not be bothered with discussing on a certain matter on which the center has not made a proposal on the floor. Sir, could you start the time, please?
Yes, sir. It started in my wala thing, but yeah. Bianca, please start it. Achha, someone else is sharing.
Right, and hence we do not intend to discuss something on the floor of the House as long as the government has not presented it to the floor of the House. So we entirely do not intend to engage on prepacks, at least not now. So that's the first part. Secondly, I've already spoken about the Injeti Srinivas Insolvency Law Committee, and we have spoken about how the constitutional anvil is something that is satiated by the act. I would like to bring to everyone's kind attention a certain number of observations as to how the third pillar of my discussion as to the efficacy of the act. So, as I had earlier spoken of, 94 cases have been resolved through IBC in the fiscal year 2019 with a recovery rate of 43%, when the recovery rate of earlier mechanisms was a mere 26.5%. For these 94 cases, the recovery rate is almost twice as much as the liquidation rate is, which goes on to show the value maximization possible through the IBC process. The IBC has, as we have kept on reiterating the fact that we have shifted the balance of power to the creditor from the borrower, thereby significantly improving the credit discipline. How? There is a sense of urgency and seriousness amongst defaulting borrowers because losing their asset is very much a possibility of the resolution process fails. As per a report of the IBBI itself, almost rupees 2.02 lakh crore rupees of debt to 4452 cases were disposed of even before admission into the IBC process, rather the CIRP process, as the borrowers made good the default owed to the creditors. This goes on to say that at a point of time when the average resolution timeline earlier used to be, and this is a fact, 4.3 years, right now it stands to be a mere 324 days. With this, we have come to a complete circle of how and why the code as it stands right now, number one, stands true to the constitutional anvil. Number two, happens to possess a high amount of efficacy as much as the opposition fails to believe it. And number three is actually working in the favor of the creditors who were otherwise in the previous insolvency regime left high and sundry out in the open. In the coming speeches, we are going to address a couple of other issues of the opposition. Again, insofar as prepax is concerned, we do not wish to engage on it because the government would put up its thought process into the issue, and then only once it has been revealed or brought to the floor of either of the houses would it be Shreyaskar that we speak of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll take Kapil Sibal.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Sir, the concern about the bill is the Act 29A, and in that subclause D has been convicted for an offence punishable with imprisonment for 2 years or more. Dear sir, dear government officials, I'd like to say that the conviction, the crime for which he is convicted, shall not be merely financial and therefore has no connectability, has no connection to why he should be barred from not taking part in the committee of creditors. Second, is prohibited by the SEBI. See, the thing is, SEBI doesn't completely or fully ban a person. The time limit is of 6 months. So basically, once you are banned for 6 months, and then you can again resume trading, and but then under this article, you shall not be able to participate in the board of creditors. That is the concern to which the amendments should be focused on, the next amendments. Then the concern remains about the connected person. The connected person is any person who is the promoter or in the management or control of the resolution applicant proper. Then who shall be the promoter or in management or control of the business of the corporate debtor. See, the thing is, once a resolution process has started and a person is admissible, but then due to some issues or something, he becomes a promoter or in the management. So what will you do about the same person when he becomes the manager? This is the next thing I wanted to be clarified, and that's all my concerns.
Thank you, sir. Mir Fayad, sir. Mir Mohammad Fayad, sir.
Sir, he texted that he has some connectivity issue. He'll be joining ASAP. Probably he's in the waiting room.
Okay.
Yeah, he is texted on the group.
कोई नहीं. Till then we'll take Jairam Ramesh, sir. एक second. We have Mir. हाँ, yes.
Okay, so thank you, sir, Chairman. Before we move ahead, number one, I just recalled from previous speeches of some particular members of the government that spoken that they do not allow liquidation process to happen immediately, and they wait for the entire resolution process to take place. And because they don't want to wind up the company and give the corporate debtor or the company to actually manage its own problems and to actually solve as much as they can. But sir, I think that's a little ironical because they want to give the debtor time to solve matters inside the company, but they don't want to give debtors the opportunity to come up and speak. But okay, keeping that part away again, when it comes to the topic of pre-pack schemes, I understand that it's not, even if it has not been actually brought in it's not been laid by the government yet, but it is a topic which the government does plan to implement. Now, if there are some challenges to it, it's the role of the opposition to basically tell the government what it basically feels and give a very critical analysis to the same. So some errors or flaws can be prevented to take place. Now, continuing to where I left regarding some flaws, there are just two major things I would like to say in the regard. So, as far as the pre-pack schemes are considered, it has been also argued that insolvency can be pushed away by its own management as well. Now, it is not sensible, right, to allow the same management to alienate the assets of the company, and this insolvency framework could then turn out to be prejudicial to the certain stakeholders. Now, certain stakeholders can be a lot of people. It's just not the shareholders. There are banks involved. There are government is also involved in the very same thing. So this is what I would like to. I would like that the government takes this into regard for the same thing. Now, the role of an IRP would be on a very gray area, where the implementation of a pre-pack scheme would face challenges in as much as a normal CIRP process is happening. Now, if an IRP is appointed as soon as its application is admitted, however, the process is very much similar to what the CIRP is. So it's the request, probably take it as a request to the members of the government that you need to work on the flaws of what the CIRP basically had, and same should not be implemented while such schemes are considered. Now, my fellow parliamentarian basically brought up the topic of insolvency and bankruptcy. So I would just like to define certain terminologies that which I had already mentioned in the committee earlier, that insolvency and bankruptcy only differ when the court intervention takes place. I would like to continue further. Thank you, sir.
Yes, we'll take Mir Fayad, sir. Then we'll take Gehlot, sir.
Right. Thank you so much. So I'd like to continue on on a point of cartelization due to the current processes, right? So in my last speech, I made it out that that there is sort of a syndicate that is operating, which is enabled by such provisions of the IBC. Now, to further prove this, we have very recent cases, and those are some big ones, right? So we all know that real estate, manufacturing, retail, these are some of the sectors which employ in mass, and which generate revenue in a very high volume, right? All of these sectors, MSMEs, manufacturing, real estate, etc. Now, majority of the companies which come under the IBC process, they also come from these sectors only. This is also in the document which I had sent across through the EB. So we'll take the example. We'll take some recent examples, right? For example, let's take Alok Industries. Now, Alok Industries was liquidated at a 17% realization rate, which meant that there was an 83% haircut. Now, it was bought out by Reliance Industries, which essentially means that Reliance got it for 17% of value. Another example would be Monet Espat. Monet Espat was realized at 26%, which essentially meant that there was a 74% haircut, which was undertaken by the company. It was also acquired by a consortium of JSW. We have Electro Steel, which is realized at 40% at a 60% haircut. Vedanta bought it at 40%. Now, if you see a pattern that is being formed here, and that is all of the industries, they are being forced into insolvency and subsequently bankruptcy. And then these big players are coming in and they're buying off these really, these important and these valuable companies at throwaway prices. So this is something which we should not let happen, right? They matter a lot when we consider the vibrancy of an economy. In an economy, you have to be very varied among sectors. So the moment these small industries, they undergo insolvency, and these big players, they come in and buy them off, it's essentially creating a air of stagnation in the economy. So this way we see that there is sort of a cartel that's being formed due to this process, and we'd like to suggest some concrete measures for it in the subsequent speeches. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Gehlot sir. You're mute.
So I have a request. Since I would be reading something from my computer and I would not be able to look at the screen, could you? So the time we stopped, right? I haven't started.
Yeah. OC speech नहीं हुई है शुरू 1 second.
Yeah.
Just reset it.
Right. So could you kindly tell me at 2:30, like, or just call me out, call my name out?
Fair.
Right. Thank you, sir. To address the concern that Jairam Ramesh has put forward in front of us, very, very fair points that the members of the opposition should give valid points to try and stop a mishap from happening. But then there are two problems with it. Number one, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has anyway kept it open, the suggestions. So if the suggestions, I'm hoping the suggestions have been sent from Jairam Ramesh to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and then also reiterated in the floor, because if it is just being reiterated on the floor, then I cannot help but sense a political motive to it. That's one. Secondly, you are raising issues and concerns on a proposition we have not even made. All the problems that pre-packs would have, all the issues that it can create are based on a proposition we haven't even spoken of. Then I do not understand what issues can come out of something we haven't brought to the floor of the parliament. So we are going to speak about something which is of a higher credence to the Sabha. Top three lending agencies in the country: scheduled commercial banks, non-banking financial companies, and urban cooperative banks are burdened with non-performing assets. IBC is a gush of fresh air for them. The IBC provides for, as we have already spoken again, an institutionalized creditor in control mechanism for reorganization and insolvency resolution for corporate entities, which include corporate debtors and personal guarantees of such corporate debtors, in a time-bound manner for maximizing the value of such entities. Thereby, the entire agenda is to promote entrepreneurship, is to make credit available, and at the same point of time, balancing the interests of all stakeholders. When we look at IBC vis-a-vis older legislations like SICRA 1985, SICRA did not prove effective when it came to the resolution of stress, either through a revival or closure. primarily because it was not a market mechanism where stakeholders had the incentive to resolve stress, which IBC provides. Now, when you look at, so to take a cue from what Mr. Mir Fayaz has been speaking so much of, the haircut analogy. The exact verbatim of the IBBI here is resolution plans have yielded about 188% of liquidation value for financial creditors.
30
They
seconds.
are realizing on an average 43% of their claims, which is 57% haircut, through reso plans under a process which takes an average of 340 days, entails a cost of average 0.5%, which is actually a far cry from the 25% which was there, 25%, 75% haircut in the previous regime. Please understand this. This has brought about 3 improvements. Number 1, improvement in credit realization. Number 2, considerable shortening of the resolution process. And number 3, a reduction in cost, more of which I'll speak in the coming speeches. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other names? Please keep adding. Just a second. Thawar Chand Gehlot. Any names before Thawar Chand Gehlot? Okay, we'll take Jairam Ramesh followed by Thawar Chand Gehlot. Jairam Ramesh.
Sir, I would like to keep this thing really very short and would like to rebut to a lot of points by the members of the government. Number 1, that yes, I know that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has kept the flow for solutions open, and that's what a lot of active citizens of our country keep doing, and so the members of the parliament will. Now, I agree to your point, sir, when you say that you don't want to discuss or argue on something which you have not introduced at all, but then you have to agree to the fact also that it is very well in alignment to what the agenda is, because now having a code in place where we basically are going to discuss that where we basically planning to bring one a central legislature, right, which is going to supersede the state laws as well. Now everything, even if you've not proposed it, you've still planned about it. And if there is a planning regarding something, regarding some change or some new thing coming up to a certain law, it is important that we have a discussion on it. Now, I would not say let's get into a very fierce debate for it, but those are matters or points which basically need to be considered because they have challenges. अगर उनके challenges ही नहीं होते, अगर उनमें कोई problems ही नहीं होती, तो वो बात करने का point था ही नहीं. But then there are challenges. Now, one major challenge which I've already spoken about is about the entire same resolution process. Now, अगर CIRP का एक resolution process in place already है, जिस वजह से वो होने वाला है, then actually getting again a same kind of, not exactly same, but very similar kind of an act, what benefit is it going to add upon it, is also considered. Every member who would reasonably try to figure out matters or points which are to be discussed will definitely think upon it. So my entire request to the government is to not leave certain topics which may be of less importance. You cannot leave such topics. Maybe we can discuss less upon them, but there are points which are to be taken into consideration about it. Now, when it comes to insolvency and bankruptcy differentiation, and I appreciate how Mr. S. Jaishankar has actually brought this up in the committee and has explained us that there can be types of insolvencies and how the code is basically covering it up. Sir, we also have to see that the process of CIRP, as I've already mentioned time and again in this committee, is going to restrict a sort of judicial intervention. Now, if that is happening, basically we have to keep in mind that we do not take away or restrict the powers of the judiciary of our country. So that is what an entire contention basically is, and it's just a concern. Thank you so much, Sir Chairman.
Gehlot Saab.
Yes, sir. Now we move on to the more nuanced understanding of the insolvency resolutions under the IBC. Now, sirs, Honorable Chairman and Deputy Chairman, sirs, when you look at the time period between December 2016 to September end of 2019, there have been 2,542 corporate insolvency resolution process which had commenced. Of this 2,542, 186 have been closed on appeal or review. 116 withdrawn, a 587 ended in order for resolution, that is the next stage of the resolution process, and 156 ended in approval for resolution plans. The insolvency resolution process provides for the restructuring of the corporate debtor when we look at the Companies Act in a couple of ways. So first, you can merge. Second, you can amalgamate, or you can demerge, or you can restructure in any of the other ways which have been mandated by the Companies Act. Failing these sorts of restructuring, then the liquidation process is initiated, right? Now, till September 2019, the realizations by the financial creditors under the CIRPs had yielded a whopping 41.5% of their claims admitted in 38 cases. These resolutions included 8 large companies: Bhushan Steel, Monnet Ispat, SR, Alok Industries, Jyoti Structure, and Bhushan Power and Steel, which cumulatively involved a claim of 2.5 lakh crore rupees and yielded a 42.7% of such 2.1 lakh crore rupees. 5 other large companies, which are Amtech Auto, Era Infra Engineering, JP Infratech, Lanco Infratech, and ABG Shipyard, involved another 1.32 lakh crore rupees, and they are right now in the process of liquidation. Taken together, these 12 had outstanding claims of 3.45 lakh crore, but a liquidation value of 73,220 crore rupees. The reason for this, why there is a deduction from 3.45 lakh crore to 73,220, is because, sir, in the process of moratorium to liquidation, many a times many assets are sold off, but still they are not enough, and hence even if a lot of assets are sold off, then also a company can very well go to liquidation. To answer a couple of queries that were raised, hence the next round after the 12th company, the next round of resolution proceedings involving a debt outstanding of rupees 62,000 crore, however, could see a lower recovery because these entities are comparatively smaller asset concentrations in the long integrated space. And that is precisely why, to sum it up, that is precisely why sometimes it can be viewed as a slowdown process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. New names? Please keep adding it. Yes, Jairam Ramesh.
Thank you, sir, Chairman. Before we move ahead with the debate and discussion, I request I request various members of the Rajya Sabha to basically bring up their points as well, because that is how we as an opposition or members of the government can basically come together on various consensus and bring out a better legislature. So everybody's points are highly appreciated in the committee, and that is how we'll have a better discussion on the legislation, which is considered to be a very important one as far as insolvency and bankruptcy is considered in our country. Now, Sir Chairman, I would like to draw the House's attention to this case law of Colonel Vinod Avasthi versus AMR Infrastructure Limited. So I would like to directly come to what the Honorable Tribunal wanted to talk on. So the Honorable Tribunal observed that the framers of the IBC had not intended to include within the expression of an operation debt from other than a financial debt. Now, when I say this, I'll tell you how. So let's not get into the facts of the case, though it will help us understanding it. And an operational debt would be confined only to 4 categories, which has been specified in Section 5, Clause 21 of the IBC, like goods, services, employment, and government dues. Now, the tribunal held that debt owned by the petitioner in that case had not arisen from these 4 categories. Now here and later it was sought that it was a matter related to the possession of an immovable property. But sir, that is not what the point is. The point here basically stands is that, sir, because operational debt, I was only confined to these 4 subtopics, it was tough for that tribunal to basically interpret and actually decide within what ambit are they going to settle this case on. So when it comes to actually proposing a solution to this committee, it can be considered that the ambit of the operational debt or the financial debt can be increased and increased in a wider scope, where more topics or more certain sector aspects can be taken into consideration. To just sum up with that, I would say that the point 9 in list 3, that is a concurrent list of our of the constitution, it basically talks about insolvency and bankruptcy. Now, how is it basically clashing with the state law and the central law? What I'll be discussing in my further speeches. With this, I would say other members of the house to basically come up with their points. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Also, why are you guys not adding your names? Yeah, please keep adding your names. Like, don't make me speak each and every time. Sanjay Singh.
Before Mr. Sanjay takes the floor, because see, we have a very limited number of MPs present today, and the one of the concerns that you'll always come across in such academic simulations is people telling you कि हमें बोलने की opportunity नहीं मिली. So I humbly request कि because you have a limited number of stakeholders present today, so please make the most of this opportunity that there are less people, so there is abundance of opportunity that you will get. And there has been a constant repetition of some people getting involved again and again. It's my intention is, and neither Rishikesh's intention is to discourage them to participate, because it's been because of people like you why we've been able to extend it from morning 11 till evening 6, right? But मैं एक रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ आप लोगों से, बिकॉज यू बीन द पार्टी लीडर्स, तो आपको पता है कि इन योर रेस्पेक्टिव पार्टीज द पीपल हु हैवंट बीन स्पीकिंग एट ऑल, प्लीज गेट इन टच विद देम इन पर्सन, tell ask them what their concerns are, and please allow them also to speak, and please encourage them to speak more often, right? So that there is a unanimity in participation, and this is what the real essence of your leadership traits would be, to not only just speak but even encourage your party leaders to speak and give them an equal opportunity. तो आज तो बहुत ही कम लोग हैं, तो considering that it was very obvious that a limited people could have spoken, but I humbly request कि एक तो जो 30 लोग हैं ग्रुप में व्हाट्सएप में, और जिन उसमें से सिर्फ 15 या 16 ही हैं, तो बाकी लोगों से भी एक बार पूछ लो कि उन्हें क्या प्रॉब्लम है, ठीक है? तो अगर उन्होंने नहीं आना है तो फिर tomorrow also if we are going to continue with the same faces unfortunately, तो please be mentally prepared and just speak to each other. और इसमें से भी you will find a lot of people, 2-3 लोग ऐसे हैं who are not being able to participate, so just ask them what the reason is and try to bridge down the gap, and I'm pretty sure that tomorrow we'll see a better quantitative participation, because qualitatively everything is going very smooth. तो ठीक है, no problem. थोड़ा सा ही टाइम बचा है, तो who is the next one? ऋषिकेश,
Sanjay Singh and S. Jayasankar.
ठीक है.
Sir, I believe I was there, sir. I had put in a dot before Madam Jairam Ramesh.
तो एक काम करते हैं, गेहलोत साहब, आपकी प्रायर परमिशन से, बिकॉज आपका कंसेंट तो लगेगा ही इसमें, वी कैन हैव फर्स्ट ये संजय जी, फिर जयशंकर जी, फिर आप, और फिर अपना जयराम रमेश.
जैसे भी सर.
ठीक है, चलो.
यस सर. तो सर मैंने अपने पहले स्पीच में भी मैंने मेंशन किया था कि जो there can be a problem with related to the information utility, and I had suggested some like वैसे कुछ suggest किया था मैंने कि to collaborate with the RBI in regarding the information utility for with the credible sources. तो सर ये इशू मैंने इसलिए रेस किया था ताकि मैंने लास्ट स्पीच में मैंने बताया था कि जो मिस्टर गोला का जो था, जिसमें इट टुक अ लॉन्ग टाइम, इट स्ट्रेच्ड द टाइम ऑफ द COC in and presenting the information about the overall about the company's overall thing. तो मैंने वही इशू वही सजेशन मैंने दिया था कमिटी में, एंड आई वुड लाइक the treasury would kind of deliberate upon the suggestion that I have given. If it is right, then you can also say. If it is wrong, then you can put it put it in the committee itself that what are the implications related to it. And there can be also issues that is to be seen as the hindrance in the functioning of the IUs in the future is the privacy concerns that will be raised by the corporate debtors and creditors due to the sensitivity of the information that is liable to be filed. The provisions on the working of the IUs and IBC itself are silent as to how the privacy concerns will be tackled by the IUs as for the protection of the sensitive corporate data. So what I'm essentially saying is that there can be also a theft of the data or the piracy of the data might be in the future. So अभी अगर वो सब चीजें अगर हम लोग अभी से ही अवॉइड करने का ट्राई करें, then the information utility can become a a stronger legislation within the IBC.
Thank you, sir. Sir Gehlot sir, sir, I seriously cannot see your message wherein it is after
Sir, I'll tell you
5:38 वाला.
हाँ sir, 5:38 के पहले was my first speech, sir. उसके बाद
आप उसके 5:31 से आप और वो रिपीट हो रहे हो.
हाँ सर, एंड जयराम रमेश वाज द लास्ट स्पीकर एट 5:30.
हाँ.
उससे पहले वाज माई, से देखिए उसी टाइम पे मैंने डाला डॉट.
5:38 वो हो गई थी आपकी स्पीच जयराम रमेश की.
5:38 को इफ आई स्टार्ट स्पीकिंग देन 5:45 1 को जयराम रमेश शुड हैव.
अच्छा, तो आप बोल रहे हो कि ये पहले जाला डाला था. ओके. हाँ, गलत सर. ठीक है, अभी विल एज वी हैव डिसाइडेड विल टेक संजय सिंह, जयशंकर, देन यू. संजय सिंह.
तो संजय सिंह अभी बात की ना.
जयशंकर.
यस, जयराम रमेश जी ने अपनी अभी स्पीच में राइटली पॉइंट आउट किया कॉलोनियल अवस्थी का केस, जिसके अंदर ऑपरेशनल डेप्थ को लेकर एक पॉइंट आउट किया गया था. लेकिन एनसीएलटी ने रेनिस पेट्रोकेम एफएसजी वर्सेस आकर ग्लोबल प्राइवेट लिमिटेड के अंदर भी इसी को ही पॉइंट आउट किया था, जिसके अंदर आई जस्ट वांट टू ऐड कि जहां पर ये था कि वेदर अ गारंटर कैन बी कंसीडर्ड एज अ corporate debtor in case of a claim by an operational creditor. और उसमें NCLT ने एकदम स्पष्ट शब्दों में कहा था कि the amount due from the buyer of the goods and which is due to the seller of the goods and is guaranteed by the guarantee agreement is also an operational debt. So it is like operational डेप्ट के अंदर किस प्रकार की मतलब ऑपरेशनल डेप्ट की एम्बिट के अंदर किस तरह की चीज़ों को ले सकते हैं, उन सब चीज़ों को केस टू केस इंक्लूसिव किया जा रहा है एनसीएलटी के थ्रू. दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी कोड 2016 जो है, अगर हम देखें तो बहुत सारे लॉज को हटा के उन सब की जगह एक नया लॉ लाया गया था. और इसलिए समय समय पर इसमें अमेंडमेंट किए गए, क्योंकि बिकॉज जब 12 स्पेसिफिक कंपनीज की लिस्ट जब जारी हुई थी और उसमें ये कहा गया था कि हमारी प्रायोरिटी ये रहेगी, तो केस टू केसेस बहुत सारे डिफरेंसेस आए और बहुत सारी चीज़ें गवर्नमेंट को भी समझ में आई और द एग्जीक्यूटिव अथॉरिटी उनको भी समझ में आई कि ये अलग अलग होते हैं. इसलिए अभी जैसे अगर मैं सिर्फ एक स्पेसिफिक अमेंडमेंट पॉइंट आउट करना चाहूँ तो आईबीसी का जो 2018 का जो अमेंडमेंट था, जिसके अंदर स्पेसिफिकली कहा गया था कि जो होम बायर्स हैं, ट्रीटिंग होम बायर्स एज फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिटर्स, बिकॉज रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर में ये प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था कि जो वहाँ के लैंडलॉर्ड्स हैं उन्होंने पैसे ले लिए किसी भी स्पेसिफिक चीज़ के लिए और फिर उन्होंने अपना जो भी उनका प्रॉमिस रहता है वो नहीं पे कर पाए. सो होम बायर्स को यहाँ फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट का टैग देके उनको अनेबल किया गया कि वो जो बिल्डर्स हैं उनका जो ऑब्लिगेशन है उसको वो फोर्स कर सकें एंड बैंक्रप्सी और इस रेजोल्यूशन प्लान के थ्रू इसको आप इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकें. सो दैट वाज द अमेंडमेंट फॉर अ स्पेसिफिक पर्पस. और इसी तरीके से अलग अलग पर्पसेस के लिए आते रहे हैं और क्योंकि ये नया लॉ है तो इसी तरह आते भी रहेंगे. थैंक यू.
Gehlot. Mute.
So I'll need just 5 seconds. Just 5 seconds. Is that fine, sir?
ले लो.
Thank you. Right. Okay. So may I begin?
Yes.
Right. So I'm going to address the concern raised by Mr. Sanjay Singh first. The issue as to why we cannot have so the RBI involved with the working or the stature of the information utilities is because of two reasons, sir. Number one, IBBI is the primary authority which takes care or which mandates how or what an information utility should be based on section 210 of the IBC. That's one. Secondly, when you look at what information utilities are, they are primarily companies which provide for information utility services. Now, the issue of why we cannot have RBI for this, as much as I do appreciate the concern of data theft, is because RBI is the Reserve Bank of India primarily has under its mandate the operation of banks, non-banking financial companies, banking financial companies, banking institutions, money lenders. It cannot have a say or sway over information utilities, sir. We can, however, have some other consideration for this, which we can obviously refer this matter to a standing committee or an ad hoc committee for further discussion on this issue. That's one. Secondly, to engage with portfolio designate of Jairam Ramesh, my apologies, on pre-packs. The issue with pre-packs, and as much as it can be considered to be a plan of ours, the issue with as to why we do not want to discuss with pre-packs at this point of time is because for any planning to be done or any consideration thereof, any step to be taken on a planning, we need to first look out the solutions or suggestions that we receive. The reason as to why I would still request Madam Jairam Sharma not to make the floor the tussle or the brittle fight or brittle discussion for pre-packs is because we would rather want to streamline the discussion and the suggestions that we get to one space only. One space being the MCA regulations, the MCA, my apologies, MCA suggestion box. Now, having said that, the point that we have to also bring into consideration that I would rather want to bring to everyone's consideration at this point of time, the time is ripe at this point of time that we have saturated most of the discussion topics as we had decided before the list of business was formulated upon, which was to decide on the corporate insolvency resolution process. And with this, I would also request the members, my fellow members of parliament, to kindly keep a note of the time. And until and unless there are no new points to add on to this, may we convene or adjourn the meeting for the day, maybe have discussions, informal discussions on this topic, and prepare for tomorrow. Thank you.
Jairam Ramesh.
Thank you, Sir Chairman. 3 points. Rebut. I'm just going to rebut to 3 major speeches given by prominent members. Number one, I absolutely agree to what Sir Jaishankar had spoken about, and I also am aware about the case law. But I want to know that in order to, I don't want to know, I just want to tell this to the committee that in order to succeed in initiating corporate insolvency resolution process against a debtor, it is sine qua non to prove that the creditor falls within the ambit and the scope of the definition either mentioned in section 5 clause 7 or section 5 clause 20 of the IBC. Now, from the case laws which have been brought up by Sir Jaishankar as well and me, it was really vague and ambiguous for the tribunals to basically decide upon them. Now, coming to what Sir Sanjay Singh said in the committee, I absolutely agree to his point when he says that we have a threat to data privacy. I would like to add to those points as well, that it is highly important on one hand that the process is very transparent in its nature from the statutory side, that the actions taken by the statutory authorities or also by the committee of creditors, whatever actions and whatever is the decision taken, it has to be very very transparent in its very nature, but the government or the statutory body regulating it has to make sure that the confidential information is not basically released out. So that's a major big concern which comes into place. Now, coming to what Sir T.C. Gehlot said, that yes, sir, I agree to your point that let's not actually confuse the floor with a lot of various other topics and not to bring up not to bring up any new topics, keeping in mind that we just have 5 minutes of the parliament left. I also agree that maybe me bringing up the topic of pre-packs was not so important for the house, but it is an important aspect which the government also believes, and I also agree to the fact that MC has kept it open. So solutions are being given there. But then when the house is basically discussing on it, me on a very personal capacity thought that it is highly important for us to bring up something the government was basically planning. Now, keeping that in mind, I myself request the members of the parliament to not bring up if there are no more important topics to be discussed upon, and with the due permission of the chairman, to adjourn the meeting for the day. Thank you so much.
Gehlot.
Thank you, sir. Now that we are speaking on the understanding of the topic of data protection and privacy of the information of the users, may I bring to everyone's kind attention Regulation 30 of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India Information Utilities Regulation of 2017. This clearly mandates, when you look at it, and also ensures that the protection of the rights of users, the services that are provided to a user, any adequate procedures and facilities about the records of the users, the data processing systems, the disclosure or dissemination of information, or any sort of transfer of information submitted by a user shall entirely be given an umbrella protection thereof. An information utility also has the onus of not outsourcing the provision of core services to a third-party service provider, or use the information stored with the certain information utility for any other purpose apart from providing services under the regulations, or to seek data or details of users except as required for the provisions of the services under these regulations. Now, to ensure the protection of the same, the information utilities have a very high amount of liability that is placed on them, both pecuniary and criminal, which at the end of the day ensures that this becomes a streamlined process. This is to answer the question of Madam Jairam Ramesh and Sir Sanjay Singh. That's one. Secondly, also taking into consideration a couple of unanswered questions that have been put to the floor so far. The issue of I believe this was something that was put forward by Sir Kapil Sibal, which was with regards to Section 29A Clause D, which is as to why are people who have a criminal background or who have been imprisoned for more than 2 years disqualified from being a resolution applicant. I believe, sir, that is entirely an ambit of the executive at place, and if the insolvency law committee reports are of the opinion that there should be a certain way the disqualification of resolution applicants should go, then we are to a very large extent bound to be influenced. Please mind the words, bound to be influenced by the suggestions that are given, and that is for a couple of reasons. The first reason being that these law commission reports have put in extensive amount of study and research into what the ground reality is and how countries around the world have implemented or modified their own insolvency bankruptcy laws. And number two, because it would be very suitable to the corporate setup in India. How do we understand that the corporate it would be very suitable to the corporate setup in India? Because as is also exemplified by the MCA circular with regards to pre-packs, we open the floor for suggestions and advice from our brethren and friends from the for the corporate setup. Thank you.
Mir Fayaz.
Before Mr. Mir Fayaz take the floor, I'd like to announce that he'll be the last speaker for today's
Right. I was just
meeting
gonna
of the,
move. I was
Rajya
gonna seek the beggar of the house to adjourn the meeting. It's not
Oh.
exactly speech.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. ठीक है.
Right.
तो
Yeah.
fine. People who would like to adjourn the meeting.
Raising our hands now.
वैसे भी the office hours are closed. मैं तो निकल लूँगा. तुम use करते रहो.
Only
Okay,
3
people who
yeses.
don't want to leave the meeting today.
There
Please
are
raise
lots
your
of
hands.
thumbs up.
We have Jairam Ramesh,
अच्छा,
Mir Fayaz. सर नो के लिए ज्यादा है, क्या
वो
बात
के
है?
लिए ज्यादा है.
What? नहीं, these are for yes, right?
अरे
अच्छा,
ये
दोबारा कर
नहीं।
लेते हैं लोग.
So confused.
प्लीज हटा दो सबके रेज हैंड्स.
हाँ एक
So
सेकंड.
can we
यस
do
नो,
yes or
यस नो,
no?
हाँ यस नो कर दो, मैं डिक्लेयर
हाँ.
रिजल्ट
यस
बोल
कर दो.
दूंगा.
पीपल हु वांट टू एडजॉर्न द मीटिंग फॉर टुडे, यस वाला प्रेस कर दो. देखो सब आ गया. ओके, पीपल हु डोंट वांट,
से नो.
नो.
एक भी नो नहीं है, ठीक है
एक भी
चलो.
नो नहीं है.